Hi, my name is Jean Molitor, and I'm putting together an all-inclusive video on how to make a surgical mask that includes not only a nose clip, but also the N95 filter. So, we're going to start out with making the materials that you need for this mask. So I'm going to go through the pieces of supplies that you will need to make your basic mask. First off is a 9x6 template. This template applies to your outer fabric, the N95 filter fabric, and the inside fabric. They are all the same size cut off this template. You will also need 7-inch strips of elastic. You will need 2 for each mask. Additional supplies are the nose part, which clips over the nose or is inside the mask and conforms to the nose. Trash bag tie-ties, bread bag tie-ties, and tie-ties for gardeners who tie their plants up. These all work really quite well. In lieu of these, you can use paper clips. So a 1 1/4 inch paper clip is the best to use. It opens up, you can open it up flat, and then you can conform it to your nose. The 1 7/8 inch paper clips should not be used. These are too big and they're too thick of a gauge of steel to conform very easily. If you have kids at home and they're bored, put them to work. Get these paper clips, have them take a pliers and have them straighten out as best as they can. The next piece of supplies that you will need are your elastic. In a perfect world, and it's not perfect right now because the whole country is sold out of elastic, you would be using 1/4 inch elastic. That is the best size elastic to use. But if you don't have that, 3/8 will work. 1/2 inch is getting a little big. The reason it doesn't work very well is it's too strong and it will pull the mask off of your ears. If you have 3/4 inch or 1 inch elastic that has sealed edges, which they all do, you could cut it in half. It will fray like this one has, but it will be usable. If indeed ultimately these fail, they could always put on tie-ties of some sort and make the mask last as long as it can. This is what happened when I used a 1 inch wide piece of elastic and tried to get 3 pieces out. The middle part just frayed. This is using half, and I've trimmed, one side is finished, and I've trimmed the other side that had all the fraying parts. It will continue to fray some, but will retain its structural stability for quite a while and through quite a few washings, I believe. So these are some adaptations that you can use if indeed you do not have elastic. You can make tie-ties. They need 4 ties, 2 to go around the upper head and 2 to go around the neck. The template for that is 1 inch by 16 inches long. Again, you will need 4 pieces of this for each mask. You would cut out your strip, and then your iron is your friend on this. You would want to iron down the edges, and then you would want to fold it in and make half, just like bias tape. You would do that and fold it in, and then stitch down it, and you've got a tie-tie. You can also use double fold bias tape. Just stitch it down the side and make it 16 inches long for those per mask. Another thing you can do in lieu of the elastic and the ties is to use a rubber band or hair tie. So what you would do is you would use this template, which is 4 inches by 1 1/2 inches, cut your piece out, iron down both ends, fold it in half, and then you have to put your rubber band in there and stitch down the side, and then you're going to flip it over, which I'll demonstrate later, and sew it onto the side of your mask. You would do the same with the tie as well. Now we're ready to assemble the masks. So I have my filter paper, I have my outer fabric and my inside fabric, and I have the two fabrics facing one another. And what I'm finding is that sometimes they don't all meet up. Different people are cutting this fabric, and I just usually trim them so that they all are the same size before I start. Okay, so I have my two pieces of 7-inch elastic, and I'm going to pin those into this mask. I'm simply pinning this elastic in on the corners, here and over here. So you would pin both sides of the elastic on the short sides, angled like this, together between the two layers of the fabrics. So I'm going to make either 3/8 to a 1/2 inch seam all the way around, leaving about a 3-inch gap here because I'm going to turn the mask inside out. When you go around the corners where the elastic is pinned in, reinforce it a couple times, stitch over it a couple times to reinforce that, and then sew all the way around. Okay, so now you're ready to put the nose clip portion in. You either use your paper clip that has been straightened out, or you use your bread tie or your little twisty, and set it in the seam allowance on the side opposite the area that you have left open. So I'm going to put my machine on zigzag. I am centering my presser foot over the paper clip. I've got it set on a very narrow zigzag, and I also am using a 16 to 18 gauge sewing needle as well. And I'm going to sew this back and forth, and I'm going to back up to kind of cement it, ensuring that the paper clip is in the middle of my zig or my zag, whichever you prefer. You would do the same with your tie or your bread tie. Just center it on there and zigzag across it. You can go through the plastic on those bread ties, and the trash bag ties are kind of just a thick paper, hence using the heavier gauge needle in your sewing endeavor. Here you can see your finished product. I have sewn a little bit close to the edge, so try to get it a little further towards the stitch line, but that's going to be your nose clip. Here is an example of putting one of the bread ties or one of the ties into the seam. I have simply zigzagged over it, and it actually secures it in there because it catches the fabric, either the plastic or the thick paper of the tie in there. So now we need to turn our mask out, so it really turns quite easily. And here you go. So now you're going to need to sew closed this gap here. So now we need to put 3 tucks in here. Starting up here, we're going to tuck them this way, and I find pinning from the inside to the outside works better. The most important part of this is that this distance between here and here can be no longer than 3 to 3.5 inches. I'm at about 3 1/4. If indeed you're longer than that, if that distance is longer, you're going to need to repin your tucks and make it so that it fits within that 3 to 3.5 range, and then you're going to just simply sew across here. As an informational piece of information, using the 16 or 18 gauge needle comes into play when you're doing these tucks. A really small gauge needle may break, and you don't want to break your needles. I have stitched across here, as you can see. Now you're going to want to do the tucks on the opposite side, and you want to put them in the same direction. If you were to go like this, you could see where it wouldn't make as good of a face mask. So make sure your tucks are all going in the same direction, putting your 3 tucks over here, and then ensuring this distance here is 3 to 3.5 inches wide. All right, so here you have your first finished mask. It has the little nose clip, goes around the ears, and there you go. It's that simple. So last but not least, I'd like to show you 3 different adaptations if you do not use the elastic around the ears. So if you're going to use the tie-ties, here are the tie-ties that I have made. I'm going to put them into the inside of the mask like I would the elastic, and I'm going to sew them in, keeping these tucked in to the inside. So I have pinned all these ties and I'm congregating them into the middle, and we'll sandwich the other layers on top of here and sew all the way around, leaving that 3 or 4 inch space where I'm going to turn the fabric. So once you've sewn around all your edges, then you're going to turn it again like you would the other one, and here you have all of your ties coming on the outside and secured into the mask. Don't forget to put the nasal clip in here, either the paper clip or the tie for the nose bridge, and then you'll just go like you would any other mask and close the bottom. So now that you've got, once you turn it, you've got all of your little straps, you've got your nose piece up here, and you've just created another mask after you put all the pleats in. You still have to put the pleats in on both sides, and you have another mask. So another adaptation is to use the rubber bands. So you take the 4 inch by 1.5 inch piece, you fold it over and iron it, and then you stitch along the length of the rubber band. I've made a complete mask with the clip in here, the pleats are ready to go, and I am going to simply sew this into here and sew the other side as well. So for the grand finale, here is your mask with the rubber bands. And here is your mask with the hair ties. And I have to say, the hair ties are really hard. The rubber bands seem to be better than the elastic as well. These masks, which have the N95 filter, can last for 24 hours of wearing, and that can be washed, and they can be washed up to 10 times. So these filters have 240 hours in them apparently. So I don't know, these aren't tried and true, how long they will last. But I will have to say, for the comfort level, for any of these, I think the rubber bands are the best. I'd like to note as well, these wider rubber bands are too wide, and they're just not flexible enough. They're not that comfortable, where this size rubber band is the one that seems to be working the best. This is all by experiment by me. And happy sewing. Bye.